You are listening to the Weekly Dartscast. 1 hour 90.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here and joined as always by my co-host, the birthday boy at the weekend, Burton, DeWitt. How you doing?
Doing all right, just a little bit older. How are you, Alex?
I'm doing good, thank you. And another busy show for you guys this week. Three guests coming on, three great guests. Great to get on Jaco van Bodegom, the manager of Raymond van Barneveld, also involved in the Ultimate Darts cards. Ivan Mocic, who's behind the World Online Darts Organisation. And Chris White, the co-owner of the Darts Database website, one of the big websites in darts. So three different guests for you guys this week. But let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of darts. Sport is slowly but surely on its way back. We've got this week the horse racing in the UK, snooker as well. The Premier League football, that's coming back on June the 17th. But could darts be one of the next sports to return?
Yeah, it's a little bit sad that there's no longer Estonian football and Czech football is the only things that have returned. Now we're actually getting other sports back. No, I'm kidding. I'm glad. It's good to see, even if it's behind closed doors. But there's one thing that, well, snooker aside, the others all have in common, is that those are domestic competitions. While there might be overseas players playing in the Bundesliga and playing in the Czech League, and we'll be playing, obviously, in the Premier League and the Championship in England, those players aren't having to travel internationally over the course of the season. They live in whichever country they compete in, and that makes it a lot easier for it to return. When you're talking about border crossing, when many countries are still not completely opening their borders, rightfully so, it makes it a lot more difficult. And darts is one of those sports where you're going to have to cross borders. Yes, you have half of the competition being English and the good, 10% more being Scottish, Welsh, Northern Irish or Irish, and therefore there's either no international border or only a theoretical one between Ireland and the UK, so it's easier to travel. That's not the case for the other 40 players that are going to be coming from the Netherlands, from Belgium, from Germany, from Austria, from Australia and Canada and Hong Kong, and that makes it harder for darts to come back. Snooker will be a roadmap to that, and we'll see how things get back to gear there. But darts does have to deal with that, especially with travel restrictions still being tough on mainland Europe. There's fewer people in mainland Europe playing in snooker. Most of the overseas players are coming from China, where coronavirus is under control. Those players can get out, although getting to events in China might be a little bit more difficult. The travel in mainland Europe is going to make it a little bit difficult for darts, but I do think it's just around the corner. Sports that require border crossing, such as F1, are coming back sooner rather than later at this point, and I think darts is in that same category.
Yeah, that's one of the big sticking points that is turning into a global sport, darts. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago on our last regular episode, talking about players that are based in Australia, Canada, Hong Kong, into Europe as well. It's there's probably around a third of the tour card holders, give or take, that aren't based in the UK or Ireland. So it's a tough one really to look at how you're going to get all them people involved. And I had a little look at the snooker that came back this week and how that could perhaps work into the darts. It started on Monday this week. All the players, the cooks, the cleaners, everyone involved in the event that's at the venue, they're all based at the venue. They've got an on-site hotel, the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes, 64 players, and they've got to test negative for the virus before they can actually go into the venue, stay there until their involvement in the event's over. So if they get knocked out of the event, then they can go home. And I think it's an 11-day event, so you could be cooped up in that venue for 11 days. So it's a tough one for them, but obviously great for that sport that they're coming back. And could that be maybe where we see darts come back first, is maybe have an event where it's all based at one venue? And I think they use that venue for darts a little bit as well. So maybe that could be the first steps that we have to darts being played behind closed doors, obviously not with a crowd. But whether it's a Players' Championship event, that's going to be a tough one to answer at the moment, because do they maybe start off with a non-ranking event? This snooker event they've got on at the minute, that is non-ranking, so it kind of doesn't matter that you've got some of the international players missing. It's not going to affect their ranking as such. But I was having a conversation with a few people about this over the last week or so, and mentioned as well there's going to be winners and losers in this regardless of what decision's made. And the people at the top table in the PDC, I don't envy them on this one. They've got to make some tough decisions in the next few weeks, next few months about this. But how long do you put the sport on hold? If it's just one country in the end of players that can't come over here, do you keep darts on hold until then? It's a really tough decision. But yeah, I do think darts could be one of the next ones to come back.
Now, the PDC's decision on the World Matchplay, whether it'll go ahead on its originally scheduled dates of the 18th to 26th of July, is due out. If you're listening on the day of the release, it's due out tomorrow on Friday. What side of the fence are you leaning towards right now, though, on whether the World Matchplay should go ahead as scheduled in late July?
I'm really not sure, and I've been looking at various bits online, and Barry Hearn, our good friend of the show, he's been doing a few interviews, did one with the Guardian quite recently, talking about crowds in events, and we know that darts with the crowds, that is what it's all about. It's a big part of the darts. It helps bring in, obviously, the revenue for the tour, talking about the PDC here, but it is a big part, and he seems to think that maybe around July that the government restrictions could be lifted a bit more and we could see crowds come back. So maybe not 100%, but sort of 50%, 25%, a percentage of the crowd could be allowed into the venue. So that's round about the time when we've got the World Matchplay, isn't it? July the 18th. And darts without I know snooker's a little bit different, but compared to darts, but we have seen darts with smaller crowds. Obviously the World Masters last year, some of the sessions at the O2, the first Friday afternoon sessions that we see on the European tour, but to have a darts event on TV with no crowd at all, it does feel a little bit strange. So I'm not sure. I think maybe it might be a little bit too soon. Just talking on this Tuesday afternoon here in the UK, maybe it's a little bit too soon to see the World Matchplay go ahead on the 18th of July with how we used to seeing it. But if it does go ahead on those dates, I think it's going to look very different. I don't think we're going to get a full house in the Winter Gardens.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I don't see how it can go ahead with a full crowd, possibly with any crowd. But I'm still on the side that it should be postponed because we've lost out on most of the season to qualify for it. We've talked the last couple times about alternatives that they could do if they decide they want to go ahead with that at this time, which I think would make it closer to fair. And if they do expand the field, or if they do change the qualifying criteria, you might be able to make this work. But having it go ahead, not just on the dates, but on the qualifying criteria, as I said before, I don't think would be fair. And I think it's rushing back. But on the other hand, if it is going to be the first event back, what better event to be the first one back than the second most prestigious event on the calendar, an event that I shouldn't say most, but a good portion of the players say is their favorite event of the year, just when you factor in the venue and the atmosphere. Even if you can't have that full atmosphere, you still have the venue, you still have that moment that darts is now back, we're starting to get back to normalcy, and this would be a great event for that to be, but I do think it's a little too soon. I think we need to have a good month's worth of Pro Tour events before the cutoff. Maybe move the event back just a month till the end of August, which also would increase the chance, as you mentioned, that we will be able to have 25 or 50% capacity there. The longer or the further back we push it, the greater the chance that there will be able to be some crowd. And I think that would be the best idea. But if it is going to be the first event back, you couldn't ask for a better first event back, but I don't think it should be.
Now we move on to our first guest on this week's show, and it's with the manager of Raymond van Barneveld and the co-owner of Ultimate Darts Cards, Jaco van Bodegom. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the manager of Raymond van Barneveld and the co-owner of Ultimate Darts Cards, Jaco van Bodegom. Jaco, thanks for the time. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great, guys. Good morning.
Now, we'll come on to your work with Ultimate Darts Cards in a few minutes, but first I wanted to talk about your role as manager of Raymond. Before becoming his manager, you organised some sponsorship for Roland Schulten, but was working with Roland your first taste of working in darts?
Yes. I was working in a lot of other sports, and then I got called by a friend of mine, Jan Vaas, who is a famous snooker referee, and he said, I'm friends with Roland Schulten, and he's always finding difficulty getting sponsors. Could you help him out? I said, no, I'm not into darts and things like that. And then he kept pushing a little bit, and he said, why don't you take him to a tennis tournament once, and you can meet up there, you can talk to him because he's a really nice guy, etc., etc. Now, that's what I did. He was a really nice guy, and then I found two big sponsors for him. Problem was he was already at the end of his career, unfortunately, due to several injuries. And then when I visited the tournament with him, like other players came to me to ask me if I could do the same for them. One of them was Raymond, tennis manager, but I said no to them because my initial work was in tennis and in football. But I kept in touch with Raymond over the years, and sometimes we had contact, and he asked me several times to work with him and for him, but I always said no until 5.5 years ago. I promised myself to take a sabbatical. And he asked me to join him to a couple of Premier League games because he said, yeah, but I think you're going to like it. We have the same humor and we love shopping and food. And that was all correct. So we did. I went with him to, I think it was the final night of the Premier League then before the cutoff, and he was after the cutoff, he was number last. And then we started working together.
You mentioned a couple of other sports there in your other business interests. Had you worked in any other sports or with other sports people, or was the darts something completely new for you with that?
Well, at the moment, I've been working a lot in sports, in football and tennis, and also snooker, boxing. There's so many things I've done over the years. You build a big network, but tennis and football were my biggest markets. Now I almost solely do the darts, but I'm also involved in a project with the guys from Vantage. They train certain skills for football players, from the biggest stars until let's say the biggest talents of a lot of clubs also in the UK. Manchester United, I think Manchester City, Liverpool, but also Barcelona and Real Madrid. So that's really cool to work with. And then we started Ultimate Dart Cards.
And so the point where you become Raymond's manager, he's still one of the top players in darts. 2015, 2016, 2017, 3 consecutive World Championship semi-finals, a Premier League regular. What was it like those early days being Raymond's manager?
In the early days it was easier because Raymond was very accessible. So when I had some ideas about mental aspects of his game and his work ethics, he was really, really listening. And not that I knew anything about darts because I'm not a darts player, but I thought his mentality of the game had to change because he was always, shaking his head and things like that. And I said, listen, when you shake your head, your opponent sees that. And you also do it when you're 3-0 up. So that gives them hope. And you never want to give somebody a window of opportunity because they think, hey, wait, he's struggling as well. So let me get in there. And in the beginning, like the first year in the Premier League, he was, like I said, he was number last. So the next morning, we sat in the hotel eating breakfast. I said to him, okay, just for my point of view, what are you going to do the next 8 weeks or 7 weeks? Who are you going to beat? Who are you going to lose to for sure? And where's the opportunity? Where's still a chance? He said, what are you talking about? I can beat anybody. Oh, I said, okay, I don't know that. It's like in football, you're not going to win against Ajax when you're a lower team, right? You're number last. So I think you're going to lose to the bigger player. And then he said, you're crazy. I can win against everybody. So I said, okay, so now we're going to do week after week, just play one match at a time. And the funny thing is he didn't lose a match anymore. He played a draw on the final night against Stephen Bunting. That cost him the number 3 spot, I think. So now he had to play the semifinals against Michael van Gerwen. I think he was 5-1 and 8-5 up, and he still lost. But that was, the time where he really listened. But Ray was always struggling, He wanted to play less because it got to him, all the traveling and all the being away from home. There were just, for him, too much tournaments. He was also struggling with his diabetes. And that went down every year. It went down that you're ready to do everything you need to do to be one of the best players. His biggest problem is his talent is too much. He has too much talent. So it's too easy for him. Like we did a match against Phil Taylor. He didn't play for 2 weeks. And all of a sudden he's playing great. You can't explain that. And I think that's his biggest concern. And the last 2 years, it was just, there were so many troubles at home. And it's really difficult to get a focus then. And we thought by announcing his last year that for him it would calm him down and, see that, okay, this is going to be my final year. I have the opportunity to say goodbye to all my fans. He could enjoy that. But it worked the other way around. It gave him so much pressure to perform every single night because he doesn't want to let his fans down, his countrymen down, the PDC down, his sponsors down. So instead of being a relief, it went from being kind of a hell in his mind. And we couldn't get him to settle down. He was just over practicing, over focusing. And the only thing, or everything could go wrong, and that went wrong. Losing 2 times in a row the first round of the World Championship, that's for him the biggest thing that could happen to you, but in the negative side. And the first 3 years, like you said, it was amazing. I mean, I had my point of views where I thought it was not the smartest things to do. You know, he was busy with finals when we had to play semifinals. He was busy with arranging tickets for family and friends while you're still in a tournament. You know, you need to go to bed, rest, etc., etc. But that's also enthusiasm. I understand that, because he wasn't winning that much anymore. And that's, I think, the biggest difference between other sports. You can play darts until you're 60, but your body isn't 30 anymore.
And just really looking back at Raymond's final year, one of the big stories in darts was that it was going to be his final year. And just want to talk to you about the Premier League in Rotterdam. He lost a couple of games there and announced his immediate retirement before going back and saying that he's going to continue until the World Championship. Just what was that week like being around Raymond and seeing all that unfold?
Yeah, I think I can talk about that now. It wasn't appropriate talking about then, but you know, he was in a divorce, and I'm not going to say anything about his wife because I love her. She's really wonderful. But there were so many things going on in that week that it was so extremely difficult for him to focus on his matches, you know, and he had to win 2 times. Otherwise, you know, you're out of it. And the pressure was really big on him. He wanted to perform the final time in Ahoy, which obviously meant a lot because the years before that, it was just an amazing atmosphere. He also played really well there. But the first night he forgot about there was a little draft in Ahoy all those years. And he started playing with a lighter dart, I think 21 grams instead of the 25. So when he started the match, all of a sudden he had no control. And the funny thing is, the other player with a light dart there was Peter Wright, and he was also struggling a lot that night. So he lost that match, and then he was already relegated against Daryl Gurney. And the next day he had to play Michael van Gerwen. That's obviously is harsh when you're not playing well, when you just had a big disappointment. And then that morning there was a bit of a incident with at home, to be a little bit not too specific, and that lost it for him, you know. And then we had to go back to the practice board to practice with the 25 grams. Then he had to play that same night. His grandchild was there for the first time in darts. He gave him his Barney necklace. He was all emotional about what happened at home and his grandchild being there, the final time in Ahoy, and you're playing Michael van Gerwen. So it's so difficult. But I think after the match, for the first time, we had a big argument because he didn't want to do an interview anymore. Or go back on stage, but he did, and I think it went pretty well. Then he had to go back for interviews and a press conference, and then he was in an interview with RTL7 with Arjen van der Giessen, and there was nothing wrong. I was talking to Michael and to another guy, a visitor, and all of a sudden I heard Arjen van der Giessen storm out to Michael van Gerwen. He said, "Yeah, Raymond's going to retire. What's your reaction?" So Michael looked at me and said, "Never, right?" I said, "Never." Yeah, he just told us he's going to retire. It's with immediate effect, and he's blah, blah, blah. I said, "Arjen, listen, you know how he is after you lost a match. He's always that negative." No, but he said it this time. And so I thought, what's going on, you know? So I followed Raymond. He was doing an interview, I think, with Sky at the moment or the PDC before going to the press conference. So I put my arms around him and said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Jaco, I can't take the pain anymore. I can't do this." I said, "Listen, Raymond, if you want to retire, you retire, but don't make a decision like that in the heat of the night. You know, in the heat of the moment, you're so negative now. You can't think straight. You know that for the 30 years you're doing this job." I said, "Just do your press conference. We go back to the hotel. We talk in the morning and see what you feel like then." Obviously, that didn't help. So he again announced it there, and he was talking about all the pain, which I obviously understand. So then I went back to the hotel. He went back to his home, not to his hotel. We spoke for 2.5, 3 hours on the phone. He was already regretting his decision, but he was still struggling. I said, "Listen, tomorrow morning he was going to go to Paris and just have a good weekend and let's talk." And then I saw the interview back he had with RTL7 because that came online. And in the interview, there was nothing wrong. He wasn't saying he was going to retire. He was just, while leaving the scene, while he did the interview, he said to Arjen, a small comment, "I don't know how much longer I can take this." So Arjen said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Yeah, the pain. I'm struggling with the pain." And then Arjen said, "So do you mean you're going to retire?" "Yeah, maybe I would, you know." And that's how that conversation went on. If he just walked out of the room and Arjen didn't get him back, he was never going to tell he was going to retire. So I was a little bit upset with Arjen at that time. Obviously, he's a journalist, so they're also always looking for news. But, that made it also so extremely difficult because everybody in the darts world know how difficult it is for these players after they lost a match to not to be too brutally honest, And I think you need to protect those players as well. And I think Arjen failed there a little bit, and nothing negative of Arjen because he's an amazing, nice guy. Did a lot of good for darts, also for Raymond, but this was just, I think, a big mistake. So when I saw that interview, I called Raymond back and we talked about it more. And then I said, listen, Ray, if you want to retire, that's what you do. But I have to act now because the PDC has to put out a message, blah, 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 blah. I said, yeah, I don't want to retire. I want to perform really well. But it's getting to me, the pressure and the pain. So I said, okay, then reverse your decision, if you don't want to retire, because this is not how you want to end a career of 35 years. Your goal was to play one more World Championship after the disaster of last year. Then do that, because otherwise you got to sit on the couch for the next 3 years, feeling sorry for yourself. Why the hell you announced your retirement after a last match where you were already relegated, just because you feel you were humiliated, And then he said I was right, but he still wanted to think about it. So he said, okay, tell the PDC, tell the media, I regret my decision, etc. And then on Monday, we'll speak later when he comes back from Paris. Now, we did. And obviously, I heard a lot in the darting community that it was me that made him go on with darts. Otherwise, I couldn't make money. With all due respect, I get nothing from his prize money. So there's nothing in it for me, I just wanted his last year to be a good year for him, and not go out on a down like this. In the end, it didn't work. And sometimes he said to me, maybe I should have retired after that night. But I think that's not how it works. It's for everything, there's a reason, And like the World Championship, maybe that's your next question, losing first round there again. We obviously said to each other before that World Championship, because we were in the airport, London City Airport, waiting for our flight when the draw was being done. And I said to him, listen, it doesn't matter who you're going to draw, because no matter who you get, even if you get me, the first round is going to be the most difficult match for 2 reasons. Last year, you lost your first match, and this is your final World Championship. So if you win your first match, everything is possible. And Peter Wright proved that. He should have gone or could have gone out first round, and he became world champion. And that's what I love about the darts, the mental aspect of that game, and that one day you're the best player in the world, averaging whatever 115, and the next day you throw 82, and you look in the mirror and you think, how can I do this for a living? That's what I love about it.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, talking about the World Championship. Obviously, the build-up going into it, with it being Raymond's last tournament, he had a great run at Minehead, getting to the quarterfinals, and we saw him practicing with Phil Taylor as well. So a lot of darts fans were hoping to see Raymond perhaps have a big run at Ali Pali in December, but unfortunately he went out in his first game. How tough was it to pick him up after that, as we saw just how disappointed he was in his interview with Sky afterwards?
Yeah, I've talked to the PDC a lot about these things, and I understand, but normally during the whole year, a player who loses doesn't get an interview with Sky or on TV. Only RTL7 wants that, and that's, I understand that, but they know the players are so vulnerable, and obviously they say, okay, a player can also say just normal things, but Raymond is not one of those players. He wears his heart on his tongue, you say, I think, or on his sleeve. He talks everything. It goes out without a filter. Bum, bum, bum. Everything it feels at that moment, it's coming out. And I've seen him in very, very dark places. But after that loss, and I felt the same, obviously, because Darren Young is a great guy, but he didn't need to lose against him, and there was a lot of opportunity because he was playing really, really well. He played an exhibition against Simon Whitlock a couple of days before. He played extremely well. But like I said, the first round, the pressure, it's so difficult. And afterwards, we were, after that interview with Sky, I had to make him do RTL7 as well, because you want to go out with your nose up, right, your chin up, and then the German TV. But for the German TV, he couldn't even speak. He was just standing there in shock. And I think he stayed in the UK with his girlfriend. I stayed with him for a couple of days to look after him because I was really worrying. I got so many texts and calls from people that were really worrying for him, as a person. And I think it took him weeks to get his feet back and, to see a little bit of the positive side. But I think he felt a little bit better after his big farewell in Holland in February. But before that, he felt Yeah, really bad, really negative. Everything that we were hoping for the last year didn't happen. And yeah, like you said, the quarterfinal, that was also a big opportunity because he lost that quarterfinal because he panicked just before the match. All of a sudden, he was playing 3 great matches the day before. And I think he was playing Chris Dobie, right? Yeah, Chris Dobie quarterfinal. And just before the start of that match, he panicked. And that was difficult. And you saw that it was completely out of sorts Raymond van Barneveld in that quarterfinal. And I think it was 10-2 or something.
One more on Raymond then, and then we'll get on to the Ultimate Darts cards. Early part of this year, and you touched on it there, we saw in February a big exhibition in Amsterdam to celebrate Raymond's career. It looked like a great night. But before we all went into lockdown, what had this year been like with all the exhibitions? I'm sure the demand must have been high for people wanting to see him in action.
Oh, yeah. Obviously, this year was big in exhibitions all over the world. We were going to do Australia as well, and lots of things. Yeah, the night in Amsterdam, that was the most perfect night. You know, I mean, you get lived by every single minute, so it's really difficult to enjoy for him as well, because you do this, do that, do this. But there were so many great dart players. There were so many great celebrities. The vibe was fantastic. The music was great. He got honored in so many ways. He got his own coin that made him a career prize award, a golden dart board. There were so many things they did for him, and I think that was the perfect night for him. It really was. The only disappointment he had that it couldn't be broadcasted on TV, because you want to show that to all your fans. But yeah, that's the rules.
Let's switch gears to the Ultimate Dartscast then. We've seen a lot of pictures doing the rounds on social media the last few weeks. It seems to be attracting a lot of attention. Firstly, where did the idea come from?
Yeah, that's a funny story. Like a couple of months ago, I saw an ad on Instagram doing an ultimate card, but then for the game FIFA. And my 2 godchildren, they play soccer. So I thought to myself, hey, how great is it to make some design one for them? So I did. And 3 days later, I received it, gave it to them, and they were so happy with them. And then one of them said, Jaco, can you put it on Instagram so we'll be famous? And they're 4 and 6 year old. Mm-hmm. So I thought, okay, I do that. So I tag a couple of football players I know, and I tagged the company who made it. And then that guy responded to me. Exactly at the time he responded to me, I thought to myself, how cool would this be in darts? Because I think the darts merchandise, can have a little injection, a little bit. It's always the same, and there needs to be something new. And this is something that you can only see as positive. It can make you proud. Everybody identifies it with the ultimate cards of FIFA. So I thought, how cool would it be? So I approached the guy who made them in football, and I said, listen, I have an idea to do this in darts. I have, I think, a great opportunity because I know all the players. And let me talk to Raymond and Phil. And then I talked to Michael as well. And everybody was really enthusiastic about it. And we designed for Phil and Raymond 2 examples. And we showed them at Raymond's farewell night. People were going mad when they saw them. They wanted to have them. And then we thought, okay, let's do this in darts. And ultimately create your own version was for us the most important thing, because then everybody can have his own ultimate card. But more and more players approached me that they wanted to have their own cards. So you talk to either their manager or their dart brand, and we have a lot of players coming. Yeah, but we want to reveal them, not everybody at the same time, because we want to grow little by little and not put 100 players out there at once,
Yeah, definitely. Some big names on board early on. You mentioned there Raymond, Michael, Phil, and more following every week, it seems. How pleased have you been with the interest from darts players and fans so far?
Yeah, extremely pleased, obviously. We're because of the corona, the initial idea was we were going to do the big ones and the medium ones, and the big ones also signed by players, because I know in the darting world that means a lot for people to have the players, their heroes, put their signatures on there. But due to the corona, it was very difficult. We could only do that with Raymond and Michael, because they live in Holland just like me. So then I spoke to Daniel, the other guy I do this with, and I said, listen, I think it's great if we also create the small card, but we give them exclusively to players. We give all the players 100. They can sign and send them themselves. That way they can make some extra money during these difficult times when they can't play matches. And as soon as the borders go open again and Corona settles down a little bit, we can continue with all the players selling the signed cards as well. But then in the meanwhile, they have made some money, and it's a win-win for everybody, I think. And that's what we did. And a lot of players really appreciated that and saw the opportunity and took the opportunity, obviously. And that goes well as well. So, yeah, I think it works out for everybody now. And we're happy. We're really happy. And, like yesterday, we started the Create Your Own. We launched that, and then we saw Jermaine Watimena and Ricky Evans creating their own card. For me, that's funny, because they can contact me and they can get their own card if they're manager or sponsor approved, obviously. But I think it's the biggest compliment you can get, that a world star player wants to create his own card,
Yeah, it's really nice and great to see that option come available for players and also fans as well, create their own cards. How excited are you to introduce that option?
Yeah, really excited, because I know from him that in football it works really, really well. And he is just doing it in Holland. He's now going to roll it out together with Gregory van der Wiel. All over the world, they're going to do those ultimate football cards. And but we started immediately all over the world for the darting community. And yeah, it's just, it's just nice. We get, since the start, I've been getting, I think, 20, 30 messages a day when people can create their own cards, and we obviously knew right away that we were going to do that, but we want to grow our community first, have more players on board, which we knew they were. But like I said, we want to introduce 1 or 2 players a week. But it was just great. And then when you see it finally happening last night, and you see it was so busy on our website, constantly people were creating their own cards. And this morning it just went on, and that's, yeah, it's great to see. Let's see how it goes from here. Well, we are going to do other sports, but I mean, in the darts, I think it's really nice.
Definitely, darts is keeping you busy managing Raymond and this new venture with Ultimate Darts Cards, but the conveyor belt of Dutch talent coming through is never ending. Would you maybe be interested in managing other players down the line?
I have been asked a couple of times the last year by big players, but also less big players, if I could manage them or could do something with them. And the difficult thing is I am a curious guy. For me, the biggest aspect of darts, because I think all these players can play great darts, but only some of them have the mentality and the strength in mentality to, be the best, like a Michael van Gerwen, like a Gerwen Price, because some of them are really, really good mentally wise, and some of them not. And they are great players, but these players could get some extra attention and work one-on-one with somebody to get the best out of their career. And one of the best examples was one of the guys that was in Raymond's team, Jeffrey Deswan. And I helped him out a little bit and talked to him several times, but he really needed one-on-one, and then when his manager, Ben de Kok, and when he introduced him to Iwe Kuijten and Jeffrey worked one-on-one with him, that's when he took off, that's when he was playing really, really well. And I'm not going to name names because I don't want to offend people, but there are some really big talents out there that I think should work one-on-one with somebody, and not with me, but with somebody who can take care of them, but also the mental aspect of the game, because they need to learn that it's not about one match. I'll give you one example. I see one player, still not going to name his name. He won a last leg decider, on the Pro Tours, second round, third round, great match. And he came off the board, high-fiving everybody who was happy for him. And I said to him, what are you doing? You're playing a match, your next match in 15 minutes. Go back to your table, have a drink, have a sandwich or whatever, and go back to the practice board and stay in focus. And 20 minutes later, he lost the next match, who he should have won easily, and he lost 6-1. And then he walked out, no friends anymore, giving him high fives or, being there for him. He was just all out on his own. And then I thought to myself, this is your problem, you're so hyped winning one match, but with all the respect, in a pro tour, that's nothing. You need to win 7 in a day, and you're only going to make a difference for your career if you get the semifinals and further on. So it's a really tough sport. I thought when I started with Raymond, I compare everything to tennis and football. I thought to myself, this is not the most difficult game, but darts is the most mental game I've ever seen. Because there's no direct influence on your opponent, only the mental aspect. You see people stamping a little bit or clicking the darts or talking or, just walking too close to you. And some of these guys are natural like that, like Gerwen Price and Michael van Gerwen. But there are also guys there who try to copycat. They're not like that. And then you see that on the hockey, and that sets bad blood with other players and with fans. And yeah, I think it's intriguing. I think it's a wonderful game. I said to Barry Earn one time when Gerwen Price got that big fine, or he was going to get a big fine after that incident with, I think, Gary Hansen, was it? I said to him, listen, I understand that people are going to fine him. I said, but with all due respect, darts is only about superheroes, and you need villains as well. And I think because every great movie makes out of these characters, right? And let Gerwyn Price be a villain, because he is a great player. He's a fantastic guy, but he is who he is. He's not acting, and that's, if you see that, you need to appreciate him more and let him do a little bit more, because the rules are very unclear.
Well, Jaco, we really appreciate your time. If people want to check out Ultimate Darts, you go to ultimate-darts.com, check them out on Twitter at Ultimate Darts. And yeah, great work that you're doing, and really appreciate your time, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, guys. All the best.
Thanks to Jaco for joining us, and we're going to be doing a giveaway next week. 3 of the Ultimate Darts cards are going to be given away to our listeners at Weekly Dartscast on Twitter, so do check us out on Monday, where we're going to be revealing a bit more information about how you can get involved in that and potentially win one of your own Ultimate Darts cards of a player of your choice. We're going to move on to our second guest, Ivan Mocic, in a few moments, but just going to talk a little bit about our sponsors, Low Six. Of course, when we last had our regular episode of the podcast 2 weeks ago, we told you guys we've got a new sponsor, Low Six, and we've been running the Weekly Dartscast Lucky Dip with them over the last couple of weeks. We've had, when we're recording this, 3 so far that have been completed. One was halfway to being completed, and Burton, got to give you a shout out, because of the first 3, you've done remarkably well. You've won 2 of the first 3, you got the most right, and on the other one you finished second, so you've done a lot better than I have.
Yeah, but as for the time of recording, we have one ongoing, and you're 2.5 times as many right as I have halfway through that competition. So it seems like you're starting to rebound finally. Yeah,
it's starting to warm up a little bit. And we should give a shout out to the listeners that have been getting involved in the competition. Some of the winners that we've had so far: Dan Hutch 2112's won 2 of the first 3 so far. Stefsky 1989, Lions LFC, and RW West as well. Well done to those guys for winning. Yeah, as you say, the first one that we had this week, that was still going on when we were recording, but our next Lucky Dip is going to be on Friday. We're going to be picking some of the games from the championship group, the final group of the PDC home tour on Friday, some of the Modus and Remote Darts League games as well. So do get involved if you want, and see if you can do better than myself and Burton. We should also point out it's 18 plus, UK residents only, new customers limit 1 per person, T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly. For more on that, go to begambleaware.org. Let's get on to our second guest on this week's show, and it's with the man behind the World Online Darts Organisation, Ivan Mocic. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the creator and the boss of the World Online Darts Organisation, Ivan Mocic. Ivan, thank you very much for the time. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great, my friend. And first of all, hello to everyone. And I want to thank you, my friend, for this invitation. And I apologize in advance for my not so good English, but I promise to do my best.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you on the show. And firstly, you're from Croatia. Let's start with your interest in darts. Where did it come from, and how did you get introduced to darts?
Yes, I'm from Croatia, from a small town in Drniš in Dalmatia and in Šibenik County. I'm also the president of Dead Darts Association. I started playing darts 5-6 years ago, quite by accident, and when I saw that that was much more from just throwing darts at a board, then I totally fell in love with this sport, and since then the love for this noble sport has been growing day by day. The scene in Croatia, this is each day most popular, but in Croatia is mostly we play electronic darts, but in the last 2 years and that has also changed, and last 2 years we have many steel dart competitions and things like that on the national level, and we play some competitions, and that's from each year bigger and bigger, and we also last year become a part of a World Dart Federation organization, and that's also a big thing for our darts in Croatia, and that's really amazing.
Yeah, it's great to hear about the dart scene growing in Croatia. Obviously, we remember Croatia reaching the quarterfinals of the PDC World Cup in 2013. But one name I wanted to talk to you about from Croatia is obviously Boris Kučma, a former soft tip world champion, but as of this year, he's now a tour card holder on the PDC circuit. How much will that help grow the game in Croatia, having someone on the PDC tour now?
Yes, like you said, we have some succeed in World Cup, but I also want to say one other thing, that our also good player, you said Boris Kučma, we will talk about him, but also at the World Championship 2018, I think, yes, Alen Ljubic was also on that World Championship, and that's one also individual succeed for our country. That is also for saying this, but our biggest name is certainly Boris Kučma, 7-time world champion in electronic darts, who also won a PDC Tour card this year, and this will surely in the future popularize darts throughout our country, and this is amazing thing for our darts.
Let's get on to your work with online darts then. Before the coronavirus impacted everyone's lives, what was your previous experience with online darts? Had you played much or been involved with it much before?
To tell you the truth, before this, I have no experience with playing darts online, and for me, this is something completely new. But I quickly fell in love with this way of playing to make new darts friendships around the world, and that is the greatest wealth of all this. We definitely, and for me, that's the biggest thing of all this, to create that friendships around the world, and that's amazing.
Yeah, it's been great to see, and we've seen the creation of the World Online Darts Organisation, and from that comes the first ever Online Darts Open World Championship, which we'll come on to in a moment. But before that event, you ran a few smaller events. How did they go?
Yeah, we definitely plan to maintain this way of playing in the future. That's why we decide to create an organization that we will soon officially register. And yeah, that's right. It's all started with my little idea about series of darts tournaments that would keep us in our homes till duration of this COVID virus, and this idea with the hard work of my COVID crew team developed in something bigger every day. And next tournament we had about 300 or 400 new registered players from all over the world, and in the end, on our 4 tournaments, it was around 1,300 players from 55 countries, I think. Then that was an amazing experience, and because of that, we have some other plans that we continue on the World Championship.
Yeah, let's move on to the World Championship, which took place quite recently. Over 1,500 players, 60 different countries took part in the tournament in May. Just how much work went into organising the whole event to begin with before play got underway?
Yeah, that's a true 1,540 players from 60 countries from all over the world is something that my team and I couldn't even dream of when we started all of this. Honestly, for something like this, it really takes time. I personally take a break from my work to get all this on quality, do on quality way, because otherwise it would be impossible. This has been a full day job, and for the 2 last months, and believe me, but it was worthy every second, and my team and I do not regret the effort and the work we invested in all this.
Yeah, just talk to me a little bit about the team that you've got involved with it, because communicating with that many players from so many different countries must take a lot of effort. Do you want to give a shout out to the people that have helped you out with that?
Yes, definitely. Without we have one name, COVID crew, in all of this, this all would be unthinkable. The group of 4 people start all this, Miro Buha, Vladimir Godinovic, and Ante Pešić, and me start all this together with some small idea, and right in the start, the others join us when they see us. When they see our idea, these guys, Bata Jozef and Zoran Haller from Serbia, two amazing guys who do such a big work. Pero Primorac from Bosnia and Herzegovina also do some great job, and two of other Croatian guys, Igor Perak, the guy that I already mentioned, the Croatian darts national team member, Alan Ljubic, that we speak about his world championship. So that's a group of people who do most of the job. We also have some other people who help us around the world with some ideas and things like that, but I will not speak now because of them, but somebody I will accidentally forgot, and I don't want to do that. I thank you for every idea and every nice word that my team and I receive in all these 2-3 months that we work this.
Just looking at the event itself, it was great to see a long format used for the games as well, starting off with the best of 19 legs and the final itself a race to 15 legs. What was behind the decision to do that? A lot of the other events have been shorter, haven't they?
Yes, but when we start all of this, we wanted this to the way they be longer staying home and play darts, but we decided to play longer formats on our first tournaments, mostly because of good training, connecting people in all of this, and enjoy as much as possible the performance of the best darts players who joined us. That's maybe the greatest reason of all of this, when it's really unthinkable that they give us.
And the World Championship was won in the end by Dirk van Duijvenbode, a PDC tour card holder, but you also had a lot of other top players take part, the likes of Chris Dobie, Scott Waits, Luke Humphreys. How surprised were you when you saw established names like those entering your competition?
Yes, in a large number of top players who joined us, Dirk van Duijvenbode came out the winner, and it was a really amazing experience. I don't know how to describe you how amazing it was to talk and text with these big names. It was for the realization of darts I couldn't even imagine, honestly, and I still don't believe sometimes. In addition to the already mentioned names, should be mentioned and others, but I'm sincerely afraid that I will not intentionally forget someone, but I will say some names of that. It's like Nico Kurz, Kim Huybrechts, Mike De Decker, Andy Bolton, Ryan Searle, Diogo Portela, Nitin Kumar, Mozgan Rahmani from Iran, Gary Blades, Kevin Monk, Rene Adams, Florian Hempel, Danny Van Type, Mike Van Duijvenbode, Richard Venstra, Roby John Rodriguez, Kai Fan Lung, Noel Malikdem, Lawrence Silligan, Boris Koltsov, Xiao Chen Zong, Benjamin Pratt-Nemer, and many big Croatian names like Pero Ljubic, Dragutin Pechnjak, and all others.
And you streamed some of the games as well for people to watch. But one of the big challenges, obviously, was that with PDC tour card holders involved, they cannot be streamed on non-PDC events. Did you reach out to the PDC during the final games to see if you could perhaps get a pass to show the final?
Yes, we in the beginning of all of this we are supposed to make some streams and watch some great matches, and was a really great experience. And I try everything, but in the end I didn't even get an answer of my many questions. But again, I understand them and I don't blame them. We did this out of a pure love for darts without any material benefits, and I think we made a great one in the end. Advertising for darts in general, because we managed to bring together some ordinary amateurs players and real professionals to play together for more than 2 months, and that's amazing about all of this. And those names who played with us are probably not even aware that they made one big thing for this, our noble sport. Thank them from the bottom of my heart on behalf of my team and all the players in these tournaments. That's a really amazing thing, and I can't describe that, what they do for us.
let's look forward then. Your next big event, the Champions League, starts this week and scheduled to run into the end of November. Just give us an overview on what the Champions League is about and how it's going to run.
The Champions League is our next idea. We are aware that, thank God, the world is returning to normal step by step, and we hope that this virus will not return and let us live normally. According to all of this, we have designed this new format of competition, so the people that have enough time to play your match with all your life obligations, this is one of our ways of maintaining these darts friendships. So we changed the format to be a little longer and last, and yet not too much of an obligation, but we also do occasional weekend or weekly free future tournaments for all players around the world. And we will surely repeat this tournament series of COVID and the World Championship next year, when we estimate that is the best considering everything. But this Champions League is our one way to continue this old friendships. Will be like group stage where the players play with each other, and after that will be knockout in each region, and after that the final tournaments where the best 8 people from 10 world regions go in the final knockout tournament when they play for the finally winner. But and that this the most of that it will be format like best of 16 legs or something like that in group, and I don't know. This is our way to continue this darts friendships around the world.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing how it gets on, and the Champions League starts off with 10 different world regions covering the world, and also a ladies group as well. Just when we're talking now, how many players have you got entered so far, and how excited are you to see how the tournament goes?
Yeah, so far we have more than 300 players, and many of them that play our tournaments till now say that they start work again and then have not enough time. We understand that, and that's normal. We didn't expect now 1,000 people or something like that. It's impossible in this situation, and also there are many others also leagues and darts competition now on the internet, and it's nice to see that all, and we understand that people don't have time like before, and that's in one way and good for all of the world. So I understand that all, and I think that we anyway have a good competition with also some big names, and it will be a new and good experience for all of us, I think.
And lastly, I've been following it for the last 2 or 3 weeks really on the Facebook group. Is that the best way for any listeners that want to get involved, maybe play or follow the games? Is that the best way to follow how it goes?
Yeah, for now that is the best way. We will also make some internet page for things like that, but that will be in the future. For maybe 10-15 days we also have something new, but for now that's our Facebook group is all what we have, and we think that now that's the best way. But all new informations and things about COVID Crew and the World Online Darts Organization we will post on the time, and our players and members of our group will know on time everything.
Excellent. Well, Ivan, it's really nice to chat to you. Do keep up the great work that you're doing with the online darts. We're really enjoying following it and seeing how it's going. So yeah, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you once again for your invitation. This is really great experience for me, and sorry for some English mistakes. I try my best. I'm not so great in English, but I believe that people understand me. And once again, thank you, my friend, for this nice conversation and nice talk and chat with you. This was really amazing experience. Thanks for all.
Thanks to Ivan Mocic for joining this week. Now we'll continue on. As we mentioned on our last question we had a little while ago now on the show, a big decision coming up this upcoming Friday with the World Matchplay, but another decision has already gone down from the PDC, and that involves the World Cup of Darts, which has moved both in calendar from June to November, as well as geographically, just one country over, but moving from Germany to Austria for the first time. Is this a good move for the event?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we've spoken on this show before quite a little while ago about the World Cup when it's come around. It is usually around about this time of the year, the PDC World Cup. We've spoken about moving it around different countries, a little bit like other World Cups that you see in other sports. They don't stay in the same place every single year, and we've seen that really with the PDC World Cup. I know they've got a great thing going on with Germany at the moment. Get some big crowds, whatever tournament you seem to put on in there, whether it's in a big stadium for the World Series, a European Tour event, or the World Cup, a TV event, Premier League, they always seem to attract some big crowds. So it does seem a little bit like a no-brainer, really, when you can go to one country and you can expect a big crowd every single time. But for me personally, and it's probably going off on one of the phrases that we hear Barry Hearn talk about, spreading the gospel of darts, if you like. I do think that spreading the World Cup to different countries would add a little something to the event, and it's a shame that it's had to move this year because of the reasons, obviously, with the virus, and other countries seem to be getting on better with the virus now. And I was having a little bit of research before we started. Austria has really got it under control. I mean, looking at since mid-April, they've had less than 100 cases each day, and that continues to go down. And the death rate as well is into single figures now, if not zero, through the days now. So they've really done well with controlling the virus. So I think it's good that they've moved it to another country, Austria. We've seen on the European Tour the last few years, this event is actually replacing one of the European Tour events. The Austrian Darts Open was due to be played November 6th to the 8th, but now obviously being replaced with the World Cup. But yeah, for me, I think we've seen a lot of darts in Germany over the last few years. I think that's going to continue. Maybe not this year. Obviously, this year they were supposed to have, I think, 7 European Tour events, that the Premier League, the World Cup, not going to get as many this year. But I do think that, yeah, this is a good step for the PDC, I think, moving the World Cup around. And hopefully it will continue next year.
Yeah, and I do agree that it should continue to move around. Obviously, the circumstances you mentioned, this is replacing one of the European Tour events, Germany losing out on 6, I believe, or 5 of their scheduled European Tour events, also events in the Netherlands getting canceled. Here we have a makeup one, and Austria, in fact, will now get 2 televised events this year, as they're also going to be hosting the World Series of Darts finals in September, at least as things are currently scheduled. Although, can we really call it the finals since there are no World Series events this year before that? Well, I guess we can. But so Austria is now going to get 2 TV events, and I think the World Cup, that'll be a good one to have there, because you'll get a different home crowd than you've ever had before. I'd like to see the World Cup move around. I'd like to see the World Cup one year go to Asia, one year come to North America. I could say go, but since I'm in North America, I think come is the correct verb. Because, well, in most sports, the World Cup does move around. And it's not moving that far this year, but it is going to be different, assuming there is a crowd. And hopefully come November, we can have people in the crowd. It's that atmosphere change is going to be a great change of pace for the event, and hopefully we'll see, like you mentioned, it moving around more. Beyond that, I think the move to November was out of necessity. I think this is an event that fits well in the calendar where it normally is. Used to be an event that was in February, but they moved it to late spring, early summer in 2014, and I think it's done well there ever since they had the move. I think this should be a one-off where they move it to November, because, well, November's already too packed. I like it as a summer event, but I also like that they're moving it around this year.
Now let's move on to our final guest on this week's show, and it's with the co-owner of the Darts Database website, Chris White. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the co-owner of the Darts Database website, Chris White. Thanks very much for the time, Chris. How are you doing?
Thank you, Alex. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm doing very well. Enjoying the weather at the moment.
Good to hear. Well, first off, let's start with your interest in darts. Where did it all come from?
I started playing darts before I started watching it. My dad used to play a bit, and in my early teens, I played a bit with him just down at the local pub, really, and that's what started me getting interested in watching darts on the telly as well. I never really played much past those early years. I was more interested in the pool table, to be honest, but it got me watching darts. And the early days of the BDO, or not so early, but kind of the mid-90s, I remember some of the matches then, some of the finals, the likes of Richie Burnett, Steve Beaton, and I've been watching it ever since then, really.
Been watching it for quite a long time. And do you have a favourite player, favourite match, favourite moment from your time following darts?
Favourite match would have to be the famous Barney versus Taylor World Final it was 2007. It just had everything, the standard, the drama, the extra dynamic of Barney having just come over from the BDO to the PDC. I just think it was a fantastic match and a fantastic advert for darts. In terms of favourite players, I kind of like all of the flowing rhythmic type players. So I like watching Michael Smith. I like watching Adrian Lewis when he's in full flow. Michael van Gerwen, obviously. Although I have a tremendous amount of respect as well for Phil Taylor and what he did for the game in really raising the bar. The guy was just a machine. So I wouldn't pinpoint one particular player, but I'd give a shout out to those four who I've enjoyed watching a lot over the years.
Some good choices there, and you're the co-owner, as I mentioned, of the Darts Database website, one of the most popular darts websites around. Just talk to me about how your interest in that website began.
Yeah, so I can't take any of the credit for building the website or starting it. It certainly wasn't my idea. It is a guy called Chris Swales who started it many years ago now, and Chris actually still works with us today. He still covers a lot of the results inputting and to an extent the maintenance of the site. And I think having spoken to him, he just saw an opportunity to add some value to darts fans with something that at the time it wasn't really out there. And I came along a few months ago, really, and just agreed to put some investment into Darts Database along with a couple of other investments in darts, and it's gone from there. So I've just started to get more involved, and yeah, it's exciting.
For those of our listeners who might not have come across it yet, I don't think there'll be too many of them, but give us an overview of what Darts Database is all about.
The Darts Database is a tool for viewing darts stats going right back to the beginning of the game as we know it. It allows you to go on there and select what time period you want to look at. You can split it by tournaments, by players. You can look at appearances made, 180s thrown. It just gives you all of the historical stats from the darts across the various federations and organisations since, I think it's about 1974 or something. And somebody recently on Twitter, I was reading, because we just joined Twitter, described it as a statistical Bible for darts, and I quite like that description. I think that one's quite accurate.
Yeah, and the website's grown massively, more than 17,000 players on there, more than 5,000 tournaments included in the database on your website. But when you're collating the information and the results to start with, what were the main challenges really that the site faced in putting it all together?
Yes, I've spoken to Chris about this, the other Chris, and there were a lot of challenges in the early days. So he built the database, and then he started to exhaust all the sources that he could to populate it, and some of those earlier results were an absolute nightmare by the sounds of it. And I think he was phoning people, he was on chat forums, he was doing all sorts to try and find out the information to give the website the foundation that has made it what it is today. And I think he even reached out to Darts World, who had some of the results in their archives, and used that to get the data in there early on. So again, I can't claim any hard graft, but it sounds like it was very challenging at the beginning. Now it's much easier. You've got a lot of the results that are visible on various websites, and it's a much slicker process today. But to get it all up and running, Chris did a great job.
Yeah, definitely. And along with darts fans, we know a lot of the players and commentators will often look at the site for information. Who would you say have been the biggest names that you know of that have used your site in the past?
I honestly don't know, Alex. I wish I did. So if you know, or if anybody listening knows which players use it, I'd love them to give us a shout and to know what they use it for. I've heard some funny stories though. So I've heard stories without naming names of one in particular of a divorce settlement where a player got slapped with a printout from Darts Database of the prize money he won. I've heard other stories around sort of 2010, 2011 when I think the structure of the tour changed, and they were trying to figure out how to reassign tour cards, and some of it was up the debate, there was a little bit of confusion, and some coaches and management teams use darts database to make their case for a tour card. So I know it's used amongst dart players, darts management companies and coaches, but I don't know anybody specifically that I can say that person uses it a lot, and it would be very interesting to know that.
Looking at the database not only includes tournament results, but you've also got 180s, checkout percentages, averages, prize money for a lot of the events as well. Just talk to me a little bit about the team that's working on the site. You mentioned there the other Chris who was behind it, but what sort of team have you got now that puts everything together?
So, believe it or not, there isn't a team. It is just Chris at the moment, who I keep mentioning. And one of the challenges for us is to change that, because at some point we need to relieve that load and move away from being a one-man band, and hopefully that's what some of my investment brings, is it gives us the opportunity to do that, and we're trying to work towards doing that so that we're not completely reliant on Chris forever. But at the moment it is just him that does the results.
And you've also got your own darts database ranking list on the site as well. Obviously Michael Van Goen's top of that list. We've also got Wayne Warren, the BDO world champion. He's in 13th place. But how do those rankings work?
So it's based on a weighting that gets given to every tournament, and that weighting constitutes a number of factors. For example, whether the event was on TV, how much prize money there was, the standard judging by the averages looking retrospectively, and then that weighting gets multiplied by a factor depending on where a player finished in that particular event. And then when you add all of those up, you get the darts database ranking. So I'm not sure all of the factors that go into it, but the formula is somewhere along those lines. It's probably something I need to learn a little bit more about myself, to be honest.
You mentioned a few stories there about where the website's been used in the past, but what would you say has been darts database's best achievement so far?
I just think its mere existence is an achievement. When you go back to those early days and having the foresight and the inclination to just set that up and do all the donkey work to get the results in there, to give darts fans and players the product that it is today. I think I wouldn't single out one particular thing that darts database has done, but just producing it in the first place, which Chris did all by himself, is a fantastic achievement as far as I'm concerned.
And more recently, we've seen Darts Database now have a presence on Twitter as well. We've seen a few stats doing the round from the @Darts Database account. Just talk to us about the idea to get the site onto Twitter as well.
Yeah, so that was one thing that was missing, that the database itself was being used a lot, but we didn't have any social media, and that was due to time constraints more than anything else. So everybody's on social media these days. It felt like the right thing to get on social media and just drip feed fans with a few stats that are of interest to get people reminded of the fact the site exists and that there's a lot more stats that they can get for it. So yeah, that's what we started doing, and trying to get a bit more traction on that front.
Yeah, definitely. Now on Twitter, as I mentioned. But is there anything else that you're working on at the moment, or you'd like to work on with Darts Database? A new feature, a different stat that you want to maybe introduce in the future?
Absolutely. So the main thing that we're looking at the moment is updating the website in terms of its interface, its design, just modernising it a bit really, because it's never really had that, and that's the priority at the moment. But medium to long term, we'd love to introduce some new types of stats, perhaps look at some more performance enhancing stats rather than just the historical ones. So we're exploring all that kind of stuff at the moment, but the sky's the limit really. Who knows what's possible? People love stats, and there's infinite stuff that you can do with it, so we're keeping our options open.
Good to hear, and we'll finish up with a couple of questions away from Darts Database. You're also the co-owner of Darts World and Hockey magazines. How long have you been in that role, and what's it like being involved with those two publications?
So it's all been around about the same time, Alex, which was roughly April this year. So I got involved in all of these. As I said, I've had quite a long-term interest in darts, but about 2 years ago I began to sponsor an amateur player who I knew from my local area, and trying to give him a bit of backing to go and play in some of the bigger events. And that resulted in me going to Q school, going to some county events, which got me in and around the dart scene, and it led to these opportunities in terms of ending up in contact with people from Darts World, Darts Database, hockey, etc. And it went from there, but that only really materialised in me getting formally involved in about April this year. And I don't want to give too much away in terms of what's planned for those products, but I think the essence of it is that we just want to put more energy into them and have more collaboration across those different products to try and bring a better and more coherent experience for darts fans. So just trying to join some of the dots and give rise to more opportunities for people to get better at what they do, whether it's players, whether it's analysts, whether it's marketers, and use our products to do that. And that's the essence of what we got planned. I mean, we might have a 50th anniversary event for Darts World that we'll invite you to. Who knows? But it's just exciting to be around it at the moment.
Excellent. That's very kind of you. Well, really appreciate your time, Chris. Keep up the great work that you're doing, and great to have you involved in the darts now as well. And good luck with everything you've got going on for the rest of the year.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Alex. Thanks very much.
Thanks again to Chris for joining us. And we're going to finish up this week's show with our question of the week. Yes, it's back. It's been a few months since we had our last question of the week on the show, but this one we've gone for: would you prefer the Remote Darts League to be 2 separate leagues, 8 men in one, 8 ladies in the other, and each league played on alternate nights? What do you reckon?
No, I like that it's one competition, and there's no reason that men and women shouldn't be competing at side by side or internet connection by internet connection as it is right now in darts. And we've seen that especially in the past 6 months with Fallon Sherrick's breakthrough at the Alexandra Palace, and obviously Lisa Ashton winning a tour card. And holding her own so far in her first year as a PDC tour card holder. What very well could have been her second year because she was so close to winning it last year. I don't see a need to split it up. That said, I'm trying to think. I don't have anything more to add. So on that, I think I don't see a reason to split it up.
That's fair enough. And looking at the votes that we've got so far, this poll's running on our Twitter page at Weekly Dartscast. We're going to leave it running for the whole week. So if you've listened and you've got your say on it, then go and have a vote on our poll. It's still going. It's going to run for the rest of the week. But at the time of recording, yes, 45%, no, 55%. So it's pretty close at the moment. For me, I'm going to go in the other direction to you. I do think I'd prefer to see 2 separate leagues, and been watching a few bits of the Remote Darts League, not all the time. It's sometimes a little bit past my bedtime, some of the later games, but just looking at how the games have gone so far, and it's full credit. It's great to see the ladies involved, and we are a big supporter of that. Over the last 6 months, year, even more, we've spoke about getting the ladies involved in the Grand Slam of darts. But what we've seen so far in the Remote Darts League, you've had the 4 ladies involved out of the 16-player event, and 1 win, 1 draw, 40 defeats, and we like to call the goal differential the total minus 206. So we've seen a lot of games that have been one-sided, and we're talking about at the moment the darts. It's great to see the darts at home, all these different events, but it's a competitive market, and it's going to get even more tough to keep these viewers involved when we've got more sports that are going to be slowly coming back over the week. So for me, I think it'd be a great exposure to have 8 men on one night, 8 ladies on the other night, and you'll have 3 or 4 nights depending on how the week falls, where you've got the ladies there on their showcase, you've got the 8 ladies. You're going to see some more competitive games, I think. And okay, it's difficult because it does depend on what the setup is for these players. Have they got the right setup? Have they got the internet connection as we've seen before? Are they just able to play these events online? There's a lot of players that unfortunately aren't able, they don't fall into that bracket, they can't do it. But if you were able to get the likes of Mikuru Suzuki, Bo Greaves, I know Anastasia Dobromyslova done a little bit of the modus, probably wouldn't get Fallon Sherrick in it, she's quite busy with the modus stuff, but there's some top ladies players. I certainly think you could get 8 ladies players and make it a really competitive event.
Anything else for this week?
Got to say, as always, big thank you to our guests for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And last few episodes, we've had various different people involved in the darts. Hope you've enjoyed listening to them. Thanks everyone for listening, the support over the last few weeks with our usual show, with our other series as well, the Darts Legends, the Riley's Lockdown Challenge with Matthew Kiernan, and one more as well, just to say, if you want to get involved in our Low 6 Lucky Dip tomorrow, the championship playoff, the final games in the PDC home tour taking place tomorrow. Pick some of them games and a few other leagues as well, and see if you can do better than myself and Burton.
Yes, and so people know the reason we haven't discussed that this week, discussed the finals this week, is because we're recording it on Tuesday. By the time by the time you're listening, we'll already know, half the finalists, and we don't already even know all of the semifinalists yet. But we will, of course, be back, maybe not next week, but the following week, to recap the entire series, get your picks in for the final night. We definitely don't want me to have won 3 out of the 5 nights by the time that's done, because that would be embarrassing for everyone, myself included, that I can actually beat my listeners at picking. But no, get your picks in. Let us know if there's anyone else you want. As Alex said, we've really brought in people from completely different areas than we've ever done before, not just this week, but over the last 2 months. And that's something we've always wanted to do, is to keep expanding out. And hopefully this week was enjoyable, and hopefully we'll have more. Let us know if there's a segment of the darts community that we've missed, because that's, it's interesting for us, and hopefully it's interesting for you, but it's definitely interesting for us to speak to people that we might not have thought to speak to. And tweet us with anyone you want. You could also email us if you know our email, but I think Twitter is the best. But for Alex Moss, I am Burton DeWitt. Thank you for listening. Good luck on your picks. Good luck to everyone in the finals, and we will see you guys maybe next week, maybe not. Hang tight and find out when.